Sign guy, how are you tonight?
Doing very well this evening, Zane. What about you?
I am doing just fantastic. We've got the owner and head trainer at the Monster Factory, Danny Cage, coming up in the second hour. But I'll go ahead and let you introduce our first guest tonight.
Our first guest likes the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC too. He thinks Britney Spears is kind of cute. He used to watch TRL on MTV. He used to sing along with 3 Count, 1, 2, 3. We have with us Evan Karagias. Mr. Karagias, welcome to the Undisputed Wrestling Show here on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Cool. I appreciate you guys having me.
Would you mind starting off the interview with a little bit of background, let the listeners know what got you into the world of professional wrestling and how you got your start?
Well, man, as far as what got me into it, I mean, I guess I'm like, most other guys out there wrestling. I started out watching it when I was little, NWA, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, Ric Flair and Steamboat and Andersons and Blackjack Mulligan, you name it, So that's what, as a kid watching it, I think every kid would like to be in it. A lot if they choose to go that direction, but a lot of people don't think they can, and I didn't for the longest time. And then one day I just got up and said, hell, I'm going to go out and I'm going to be a pro wrestler, or at least figure out what it takes to do it. And ended up, talked to a couple people and heard about the WCW power plant. Once I went to the power plant, had a 3-day tryout, and then, of course, I ended up making that. And then, you just kind of, it's like being on the road, in a sense, except, in the road, you go to little shows here and there and you make a little money and you pay your dues and you grind and you grind and grind. Well, it's similar, except we were in one place at the power plant and getting our asses chewed out and making us do probably, 100 times the amount of push-ups and squats that anybody else was ever had to do. So, it was just, it's just like the wrestling has changed, generation after generation. Well, I guess the training did too somewhat.
When you got into WCW, there was the Monday Night War in full effect, and the landscape of professional wrestling had really changed over the last 2 or 3 years prior to you getting there. Did you get a sense of how drastic things had changed in just the previous few years when you first joined from the guys that had been around for a while?
Well, man, I guess I kind of was, I was learning, I was seeing the change as I was learning. Because one side of me in my head, I'm thinking, well, this ain't the way it was when I used to watch it, in the NWA days. At the power plant, we were taught to work the psychology, but it was also somewhat rushed because, you had commercials and you had limited amount of time. Whereas, of course, years ago, it was nothing for guys to go 20 minutes in a match, So, I could feel the pressure of speeding up and the high flying moves and everything they wanted. And, I guess if you were lucky enough to do independence, you got that time and you probably could work a match. I couldn't tell you if, how the crowd would respond that day and time at Independence because I wasn't there, unfortunately. But yeah, I knew the things were changing. It's just your mind or your body wants to tell you to slow down and do it one way. And then, I remember Johnny Ace telling us we want a car crash. We want every other move off the top rope. And now you tell me how you can tell a story doing that, but hey, I had to do what the boss said, To be honest with you, Shannon and Shane, my partners, man, I mean, they helped me a lot because they had done the independence. They had been doing independence longer than I'd been wrestling, I think, at the time. So, I was, it was good that I had some young guys too that also knew both styles.
You talked about your partners, Shannon and Shane, as members of 3 Count. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Jimmy Hart was responsible for putting that together. How were you approached initially?
No, yeah, Jimmy Hart was the man with the plan from day one. Jimmy came to me and asked me said, hey, what do you think about this gimmick? I think it'll be a great idea, da-da-da. And I got these two guys, they live close to where you grew up in North Carolina, and you'll love them, and da-da-da-da. What do you think? I said, Jimmy, let's do it. Whatever you want to do, let's just, let's go with it. And that's, Jimmy went to everybody in the office and pretty much was pushing it. And I think Dusty Rhodes, helped him a lot, or at least not help Jimmy, but with the support. I heard Dusty was a big help in pushing us to get started too.
You talked about Shannon and Shane having more experience in the business, but you had more experience at that time with a national company. Do you think that pairing the three of you together worked best because they had the overall wrestling experience, but you had the experience on being with a national company that was television based?
Well, definitely. I had the experience on with the big show as far as WCW and Nitro and all that stuff, for sure. And, was it a good move? I think it was, because I don't think 3 count would be 3 count without Evan Karagias, and I don't think it would be the same without Shane Helms, and I don't think it would be the same without Shannon Moore. It's the three of us that made up 3 count. So I'm happy as can be about that. Now, keep in mind back then you had 3 young egos, so to speak, and I thought we worked pretty well together, considering the pressure and the pace we had to deal with as far as agents and on the road, being thrown into the mix. I've said it before that originally I think 3 count should have went in there and really rehearsed some good songs, and made them so good that that nobody knew that we weren't singers. You know what I mean? I think that we were that damn good, and that cocky would get us even more heat. But the way we did it, obviously, we definitely got our share of heat.
Now, I know of a young fan up here in my area in Seattle, and to this day, she has all of the lyrics to both of your songs memorized. She sings them at shows wherever she goes, whenever she's in the crowd waiting for the next match. Do you still get fans that come up to you and sing the lyrics to Can't Get You Out of My Heart or sing along with 3 count, besides myself, of course?
Well, I get more, not so much fans coming up to me singing it as much as I get it, through, emails or not email, but, whether it's on tweeting it or Facebook. That's more where I get stuff like that. But I do get a lot of people saying, when are y'all coming back? We want to see y'all go one more time and different things. And I know, there's been some talk, at least, Shannon and I talk quite a bit, and Shane, I haven't, Shane's real busy, so I don't talk to him quite as much, but I know we've had some conversations about doing something. So whether it's putting everybody on the same schedule with their times, what's going on in their life is what kind of makes it difficult right now.
At one point in time, WCW paired Tank Abbott with you guys, and he was kind of the muscle man, the bodyguard type of aspect for 3 count. Did you like being paired up with Tank Abbott at that point in time?
Well, of course, because anybody had a problem with it, Tank would whoop their ass. So, everything to me is a double-edged sword. There's more than one way to do anything and everything. It was fun. Would it be better today? Probably. I just think that, wisdom and age and everything else comes into play. That we were a bunch of young guys that were thrown into a big dance real fast, and the rules were being made up as they went.
Tank was out of the world of UFC, so he was well known before getting into professional wrestling. He was never really the type of wrestler like yourself, Shane, and Shannon that could get in there and do a technical match or do a lot of the high flying. He was more or less a brawler his entire run in WCW. Do you think that pairing someone up that wasn't really a wrestler enhanced a little bit more of your own wrestling? People saw that you were the wrestling guys, and when they saw Tank in there, they knew that you were another level when they compared you with Tank.
Yeah. Well, I don't know too many people that compared us with Tank. I heard back then, of course they compared us to the Dragons and they compared us to the Hardys when they were at WWE and we were over there. So, I think everybody kind of knew our style of fast-paced, high-flying. And, even though our characters were obviously, we were the heels, I think people liked watching it. They knew we were going to put it all on the line every night. And I think that's what sold it,
You also, at one point of time, were wrestling against Medusa over the Cruiserweight title, I believe it was. Did you like being able to wrestle Medusa in intergender matches, or was that something that you didn't necessarily care to do?
Well, honestly, at first I didn't care for it because, you don't see any men fighting in the UFC, fighting women. You know what I mean? And being one of the first, I know Jeff Jarrett was the first, I think, wrestler in China, but it was a tough thing for me, for ego and pride and all that stuff. And, and I can hear Scott Hall today saying, hey, is the check signed? Is it good? Okay, thank you. And I said, you're right. He goes, no. And, Scott told me how to handle that whole situation, how to play it. And that's what I did, and it worked out. And, I probably got more hits on YouTube and stuff like that over that match than probably any match that I've done, So I don't regret it. I'm very thankful, and it was fun, and hell, you know how it goes as far as losing a belt to a girl. I mean, sometimes us men, we all think with the wrong heads,
Now, Medusa also had, at that point in time, several years more experience than you, and she was one of the best wrestlers anywhere at that point in time, be it male or female. How was it working with someone just in general that had that much experience and that much diversity in wrestling, considering she'd been a star in Japan doing that style as well as American?
Well, I'll tell you, the style thing didn't bother me at all. Medusa's a tough girl, and which, some wrestlers would rather people be stiffer than not stiff. I'm one of them that would rather be stiff because I want to be able to sell something, But where Medusa was smart is in the locker room, man. That's where her experience came through. She was smarter than most guys in the business. You know what I mean? She knew the game. She knew how to play the agents. She knew how to play everybody. So that's where Medusa was smart. And hell, I learned a lot from Medusa, and man, I appreciate it. And not only that, I mean, let's face it. I mean, she's a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? What can you say? And I really appreciate the plug she gave me, on her speech when she got into the Hall of Fame. So I got nothing but love for her.
One of the things that you were known for in your WCW days, besides the wrestling and besides the music aspect of it, you were in just absolutely phenomenal condition. Can you take the listeners through what a typical diet and exercise regimen was like for you back then in order to maintain the insane abs that you had your whole run?
Well, man, I'll tell you, I ate hardly any carbohydrates, little to none. So that was the key. And then, I got enough in the ring with cardio, and of course I'd hit the gym every day. But what got me there was I had time before they put me on TV to where I wasn't on the road, and I was spending, probably for 6 months, I was spending 3 hours a day in the gym. So being a college wrestler in high school, I was used to cutting weight. Well, this time I didn't have to necessarily cut the weight down. All I had to do was make it look good. So that's kind of the way I started training, just for, looks. I knew I was already naturally strong, trained for the looks. Once I got there, the challenge was just maintaining it on the road And that's, limiting your carbs. You still got to do your workout. And it's one of those things.
Well, you are listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show here on the Angry March Network, and I would like to now turn things over to the Bearded Wonder, Zane Paisley. Zane, why don't you fire away with some questions?
Well, once again, thank you so much, Mr. Karagias, Evan Karagias, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. You had mentioned wrestling in college, and that was for North Carolina State University. How did how did the transition go from being a collegiate wrestler to a professional wrestler?
Well, for me, it wasn't real easy, to tell you the truth, man. And I remember, Chris Benoit telling me, he said, listen, I know you're used to wrestling in school, he said, but, don't get in a wrestling stance like a college wrestling stance. Stand up, look bigger than you are. And he was telling me how Macho was an example of what doing the same thing. So, the other thing is, when I first started, man, I'd be jumping around the ring and bouncing on the ropes and just, adrenaline rushing and ready to go. And Chris would say, look, just stand there and stare at him, or walk in the center of the ring, put your hands on your hips and just look at him. He said, that shows no nerves. So my thing was, wrestling in college, my adrenaline's pumped, I'm ready to kill. Well, wrestling in professional, it's not. It's entertainment, and you got to calm the adrenaline down instead of trying to amp it up. So that was kind of the hardest part for me, I guess.
Now, in the locker room, were you shown any respect by being a shooter or an actual person that could take care of himself, or did that matter in the WCW locker room?
No, I definitely got my respect for that. Which I didn't sell it much because, listen, I wasn't a national champion. I wasn't an Olympic champion, but I was proud to be on to wrestle in the NCAA and be at that level. So the respect was there, but I didn't sell it a whole bunch, and it did help me. It did work for me.
Cool. Now, we talked about the other members of the 3 Count being from North Carolina also. Was that a plan going into it, or did it just happen that way?
No, it just happened that way. Jimmy Hart found Shannon and Shane, and then, like I said, he came to me and asked me and told me he wanted me to meet them, and, so it just happened to be that they were from, North Carolina also.
Well, I know Sign Guy's already talked about your songs quite a bit, but I was actually just hanging out with Jimmy Hart. My friend brought him in for a meet and greet this past weekend. We were talking about some of the songs that he had done, and he was very proud of the 3 Count tracks that he had made with you guys. So I just thought that was fun because he's done so many awesome songs. I didn't know that he had done the Demolition theme song. That just blew my mind when he told me that. He had written it. Obviously, he didn't perform it.
You'd be surprised some of the stuff Jimmy's done. I mean, and he can sing. He's musically inclined. I mean, man, when I first went to the studio, I didn't know jack and felt, like an idiot. But Jimmy, he can motivate you and push the confidence through. And Jimmy's a great guy, man. He is. And I think he's got another song that we recorded that we never put out, I think. But I'm not positive on that.
Okay, I need to find that. We need to track that down and get the unreleased single out. That would be amazing. Part of your run with WCW, you guys shared the Hardcore Championship, kind of a comical spot. Tell us about that experience. What was it like getting in there with guys like Norman Smiley and Brian Knobbs in hardcore matches?
Well, comical, man. I don't know. That shit hurt. Brian Knobbs, man, will mess you up, dude. He don't give a damn what he hits you with or how hard, So I tell you, man, it was rough. Our match with Knobbs, he threw the trash can, man. I mean, he wasn't even looking. He just slung it, and I remember it chipped my elbow, and my elbow immediately swelled up. And if you remember, I went off the top of the ladder with I believe it was a corkscrew twist. Well, hell, I didn't have an arm to really catch myself, man. I promise you, Knobbs felt it because I remember getting back in the locker room and he's going, he's raising hell, throwing stuff. Kid broke my ribs, and Hogan comes in and goes, "Oh, you're over there crying about a guy that's 180 pounds, landing on you," and Hulk's giving him a hard time, man. So it was funny. But Knobs is a cool dude. I mean, and the hardcore stuff was rough on the body, but it was fun, man, and we got a lot of TV time, and part of it was because I think Kevin Sullivan enjoyed watching us get beat up. But look, man, if it wasn't for Kevin, that was when he took the books right then also, and we got a lot of TV time consistently for months.
Well, we'll hit back with Kevin Sullivan. I'm sure that Sign Guy will have questions about him. My last question for you is, at the end of the WCW run, did everybody know that it was coming, or did you think that Eric Bischoff was going to be able to buy out the company, or did you pretty much know that the end was near?
As far as WWE buying the company, not one person that I know of had any knowledge of it. I know I didn't until that last show, and I'm walking down the hall and I see Shane McMahon walking, and I thought, oh, something big's going on, So that's kind of the way I found out, man. And I knew we had a meeting, and when I saw Shane come into the building, I started thinking something's up. And next thing you know, here's Shane, telling us they bought the company.
Now, did anybody stop and ask Shane why he was wearing a turtleneck sweater in Panama City Beach on spring break?
There might have been some young ladies out there that asked him. I don't know.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to kick it back over to Sign Guy with a few more questions. But before I do that, how can our listeners find out what you're doing right now? Do you have social media?
Yeah, man. I'm on the Twitter thing. It's EK. I think it's EK Karagias. I'm not a big person on that stuff. I do the Instagram and Facebook, but I tell you, man, I see stuff, and I don't do much typing on there. How's that?
Okay, all right.
But I'll get back to people. It just takes. I'm a little slower than most on the computers. Usually my partner's the one that's good with that. Oh, Shane can do anything with those computers.
All right. Well, I'm going to kick it back over to Sign Guy. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Karagias, like you were talking with Zane earlier, Kevin Sullivan was one of the bookers there in WCW, but you were there through a lot of turmoil in the office. Kevin Sullivan was in charge. Vince Russo was in charge with Ed Ferrara. You had Eric Bischoff there. There were several combinations of guys that were in charge over the last few years. Did you have anyone in particular that thought most represented you as far as having your best interest at heart when they were in charge of the company?
Yeah, I did. As far as, when it comes to best interest, I don't think they really, and this is just my opinion on this, but I don't think they really have Evan Karagias' interest, not at first anyway. I don't really think they got much of anybody's right out of the gate. I think it's about, can we make this company, it's what's the best interest for the company? How are we going to get our money back? How are we going to make this money? So I think that's the way they're thinking of it. Now, yes, is there your buddies in there and they get in a position and yeah, they're going to lean towards their buddy a little more. Who helped me the most like that? Well, unfortunately, my buddy only had the books for about a week before the company was sold or whatever. But that first night he got the books was a Thursday Night Thunder, and that was Kevin Nash. And Nash put me in the main event with Macho Man. So, yeah, Nash was looking out, I just wish he'd have been there a little longer.
Kevin Nash is someone that is a controversial figure in wrestling. He has a lot of supporters, a lot of detractors, based on a lot of backstage things, more so than in-ring, but even that, you get people on both sides of the fence with him. Way before he got the book, when he was a piece of talent like yourself, was he someone that the undercard guys and a lot of the younger guys could go to for help and advice, or was he kind of someone that a lot of the mid-card guys had to avoid?
Well, you had some of the mid-card guys that would, you know, for a while there, they didn't, Nash is easy to get along with, man. I mean, and then again, you know, if the big guy gets pissed off, you know, he's something else to deal with too. So, you know, I'm not saying anybody, avoided him, but I know for the most part, he was easy to get along with just about anybody. Now when with Mike Sanders and Chuck Palumbo and some of those guys, I know they would go to him and pick his brain. I'd go to him, and a lot of times it was usually business with me. And he'd still help me with some stuff in the ring, but Scott Hall helped me a lot, man. In the prime, I guess, or really right after, you know, at the end of my career, Scott was helping me a lot. You know, early in my career, the person that I picked their brain all the time was, Brad Armstrong and Scott and Steve and Road Dogg. And Road Dogg would be at WWE, and I'd talk to him on the phone every now and then and pick his brain about matches and stuff, you know. So all those Armstrong boys are just, I mean, they're just great guys, you know, and obviously incredible talent. You've heard them all. I mean, the saying with Brad Armstrong, he can work with a broomstick. Well, that's, you know, that's true.
At the time you were first breaking in, WCW, bigger company, it's a national company, there was a lot more corporate entity involved in WCW than your WWF and your ECW at the time. Were
Right.
you taught at the power plant how to handle the corporate aspect of things and locker room etiquette and that type of thing, or was that something everyone had to learn on their own?
As far as the corporate stuff, you pretty much learn it on your own, unless, you know, I remember Kurt Hennig smartened me up one time, and but sometimes I would get so stressed when I first started before a show, and, you know, it was like you didn't know what was right and you didn't know what was wrong. I mean, what you're growing up watching is not what they're telling you to do, and you're going, damn, is this, you know, it messes with your head some. So I used to go and sit up in the bleachers at the Coliseum before it starts sometimes, and I remember Kurt Hennig coming up there and sitting with me, and he started telling me about a few things of the etiquette and you know, as far as trusting the boys and who you can, who you can't, and all kind of different things. And then, you know, and I said, okay, thank you, I appreciate it. And he said, now how do you know you can trust me? And I thought, I guess you wouldn't be telling me and come up here out of your way, really, you know, and sit here for an hour with me talking if I couldn't. And he goes, no. He said, one day when Kurt Hennig is old, fat, and retired, or dead and in the ground, he said, and we've been on the road for 5-10 years or whatever, he goes, you'll be able to look back and go, yeah, that Kurt Hennig, he was a good friend. And little did I know it was going to happen faster than I ever would have expected, you know. But, you know, Kurt was a good guy. No, I guess the only other one that really, really smartened me up a lot behind the scenes was Scott Hall. You know, me and Scott were pretty tight.
At the tail end of WCW, they were bringing in cruiserweight tag team titles, and the company was sold like a month after they started those titles. Do you think if they would have introduced those titles a year or two earlier, it's something that would have elevated you that higher off the card with Shane and Shannon?
Definitely. You know, that's all we needed was a little more time, or, you know, whether it was time in the business or TV time for what we had going on. But, you know, the thing is, there was a time where the cruiserweights were carrying, you know, the ratings were there during the cruiserweight matches more than some of the big guys. Well, I mean, that speaks for itself somewhat. So, but as far as the business standpoint, the money guys are going, we got $20 million over here in Hulk, or we got $8 million over here in Hall and Nash, or whoever. You know, we need to get our money back out of them. They're the ones we want the TV time. You know what I mean? And nothing to knock those guys, because, matter of fact, those three I just mentioned are probably three of the smartest businessmen I know. And I got nothing but respect for all of them. But you see where I'm coming from. You know, because somebody, whether it's Eric Bischoff or whoever's in charge, they have to answer to Brad Siegel at that time or Ted Turner or whatever, because it's all about money at the end of the day for those guys above the talent, you know?
Absolutely. When guys like yourself that were middle of the card or slightly above that, and you started to gain traction and the fans were absolutely loving your series with the Young Dragons, and it seemed like you were being elevated, did it feel like it was predestined that you only had a certain spot in the company, and because of what you were just talking about, you weren't going to ever really get past that?
That's right. It kind of did feel that way. I mean, it got to the point where we weren't competing with the main eventers, you know. I mean, all we could do was hope that they'd write us in somehow to their storylines one way or another. But we competed with, you know, ourselves. Every night we went out. It wasn't about we got to outshine somebody, you know, the main event match. Our thing was we're going to go out and put everything on the line. People are going to talk about it. They're going to remember us. And, I mean, that was kind of at least a 3-count psychology behind, or the way we were thinking about it. And we just happened to have some guys, you know, that were willing to work with us like that, like the Dragons and stuff.
The Young Dragons were also kind of similar, that they had entered the business and were still new to WCW at that point, but they were putting on exciting matches, classic cruiserweight wrestling, and they just never really advanced past a certain mid-card level. Looking back on things now, do you think that anything could have been changed to get not only yourselves, but also the Young Dragons into a main event level, or was WCW structured in such a way that there was never really openings for guys that started towards the bottom to get to the really high-paying main event level?
Well, I think you got to get over, you know, to a certain degree, you know, in order to even be thinking about that area. And the Dragons were over with their work. So, you know, if you got the right creative person, there's a way. I mean, I believe you can get anybody or any team over if you've got the right creative and TV time. You know, if they're athletes and they know how to perform, the TV time will get them over if they do it long enough.
I know in the Monday Night Wars, looking back at things here in 2016 and with all the documentaries and TV shows that's been done, everyone puts over that it was really personal at that point in time, and WCW and WWE were locked in this really heated feud for ratings and for ticket sales and so forth. As a performer at your level, were you aware of that type of aspect of the business, where was your day-to-day dealings with WCW such that you weren't really aware of the head of the company going to battle with the other head of the company?
I was very aware of it. As a matter of fact, you know, Arn Anderson told me one night, we were sitting at the bar, and I guess he had a few drinks and let some out. He said, son, he said, you know what your problem is? He said, you've been smartened up to the business so fast, like Scott and Kev, and they're scared to have another Scott and Kev. So, I mean, that's what Double A told me. And, you know, it's like I was learning the business faster than I was learning some of the wrestling, you know. So I was very aware of it, because I would, listen, I've sat in a hotel room with, you know, me, Scott, and Hulk and talk for hours, and I'm just sitting there listening like a fly on the wall. You know, I was just a kid trying to learn as much as I can from these guys that are legends.
Now, Hulk Hogan, of course, was arguably the most famous wrestler in the entire history of the wrestling business at that point. Still today, you can make that argument. What was it like for a guy with your experience level, being able to talk shop with the top man in the industry?
Well, it was special, man. It really was. I felt honored, you know. I felt honored to be that close with Scott and Kev. You know, I mean, that's just the way I felt now. And what makes it even more is, you know, when I grew up watching the Mid-Atlantic wrestling, you know, I'm a big Nature Boy fan. You know what I mean? Ric Flair, I think, is probably is probably the greatest of all time. You know, I mean, I just think Flair's just the man. And Flair was one of them that told me about the power plant. And at first he kind of blew me off. And then when he heard I wrestled at NC State, he gave me another, you know, he talked about the respect, another level of respect. And that's when he told me about the power plant, and Jody Hamilton was running it, you know, the assassin. And, so I'd see Flair, and he was great to me, but he was always on the move, didn't have much time. You know what I mean? Like, he was, you know what I mean? Where Scott and Kev, they treated me like family, like their boy, you know. So, you know, Scott always called me the young boy for a long time, you know. So it's just, you know, that kind of tells you how, yeah, I felt honored. I felt honored to be working with all those guys, and not just the main event guys. I mean, the mid-card guys back then. I mean, you know, all of them, and some of them are main event now, but if you think about it, you know, Mysterio, when I first started, he wasn't the main eventer. He was mid-card and up, but Jericho, some of those guys. So, yeah, I mean, today, you know, the only regret or thing I would change is I wish my kids were older to have experienced some of it with me instead of just being young. And now they hear about Daddy and stuff or see pictures or whatever. But, you know, that would probably be the only thing I would really say, man, I'd like to change if I could.
Do you ever get requests from your kids for a chorus of Can't Get You Out of My Heart?
No, you know what I do? I had some pictures I signed, and I found one of my it was actually my oldest back when he was in school. He was going in there and snagging about 20 pictures at a time and taking them to school and selling them for $5 a piece. So, yeah. That's the request that I was getting.
He was making your gimmick money without you getting a cut of it.
Exactly. Hey, but you know, while I am on the air, man, because I know some guys that'll be listening to this, I do want to give one, you know, a shout out, man, because to my oldest son, which is now a firefighter, 18 years old, and got rookie firefighter of the year. So to all the Charlotte and Gastonia firefighters, and especially, you know, at Cramerton at 41, you know, I want to definitely give them a big shout out because they worked their asses off.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, man.
Well, before we wrap up with you, if there's anything else you want to say, anything you want to plug or promote or say to the listeners, just go right ahead.
Well, anybody can find me on the line and hit me up. You know, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. You know, I also do taxes now in the off season. I own my own tax office for January through April. I'm grinding it out. Name of that business is Rapid Cash Refund in Mount Holly, North Carolina. So if anybody's around and needs some help, holler at me. Otherwise, maybe I'll see you on the road at an event.
I have to ask, have you ever thought of a tag team with Mike Rotundo to promote that business?
No. Why? What's Mike Rotundo doing?
He used to do the IRS gimmick.
Oh, the IRS gimmick. No, I haven't, but that's funny. I forgot about that IRS gimmick, man. It's been so many years. Wow.
Maybe some marketing ideas for you then.
I know it. That would be good.
Evan
you know the deal.
Up the IRS.
It's an IRS world. You live in it, brother. Let me deal with it. Outrageous Evan Courageous at Rapid Cash Refund.
I'm telling you, a once-a-year match, it would be gold. You'd get a lot of business.
Yeah. I'll tell you what the gold would be. That one match would be 3 counts, and the Dragons or the Hardys or somebody have a big one-time event. That would be
good. The Hardys opened back up with their company, Omega. I would like to think maybe Omega would be the spot for that.
Yeah, because I know when Shane Helms I don't know if Shane's still running it since he went to TNT, but I know he was running it for a while. So, I haven't talked to Shane in probably a month or 2 months, something like that. But I try to touch base with him. Shannon, we stay in touch a lot more. But like I said, the hardest thing is getting everybody's schedules together at the same time.
Absolutely.
Hey, and you know what? Let me give one more shout out, because if anybody's at North Myrtle Beach, hit the clubhouse. It's on Highway 17, because that's another one of my businesses, and you'll probably see me there a lot this summer.
All right. Well, Evan Karagias, we want to thank you for taking time out of your Tuesday to join us here on the Undisputed Wrestling Show on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. It was an absolute pleasure to have you as our guest, and best of luck in tax season. Hopefully we get that outrageous Evan Karagias versus IRS match.
Sounds good, man. And I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, y'all take it easy.
Well, Zane, I think we got a bucket match on our list here. We got outrageous Evan Karagias versus IRS. Next tax season to look forward to.
Well, and I know a guy, the abominable CPA, would probably be in Evan Karagias' corner for that. Or if they turned into a tag match where it's IRS and the Repo Man versus Evan Karagias and the abominable CPA.
That would be absolute gold. Someone has got to get that booked.
That's seriously, it sounds perfect for Create a Pro up in New Jersey.
And hopefully the fine people of Gouge Pro Wrestling are listening to this, because they not only need to hashtag get fine guy into Gouge, they need to hashtag book that income tax match.
Hashtag book that income tax match.
Absolutely they do.
Now, where's Gouge out of? Are they out of Georgia, or are they out of North Carolina?
They are out of North Carolina. They run primarily around the Raleigh area.
Okay, well, that's not too far. That would be perfect for Evan Karagias. I'm sure that CPA would be able to get a bus ticket down there somehow. We can maybe make this happen, and you could be either the referee or the ring announcer or any other job that Gouge wants you to perform. Correct?
I would do anything as long as I get to go to Gouge. I want to go to Gouge. So Count Grog, if you're listening, book me. Please, Grog Father. Please, Grog Father.
Now,
anything.
Have you ever thought about just showing up and then like selling the 50-50 tickets or hot dogs or anything? Would that count as a booking?
That'd be a little on the sketchy side, but I'd still do it.
Okay. All right. Hey, speaking of bookings, I've heard that you're going to be in a new state here soon.
Yes. I am looking to make my Idaho debut in August.
What did you call me?
Zane the Bearded Wonder.
Oh, okay. You're saying that okay, Idaho. Oh, okay, I get it.
The Potato State. I cannot confirm at this time if they have a championship called the Potato Title.
Is that to the person that gets the biggest potato or gives the biggest potato?
I cannot confirm anything at this point in time on said title. It's just hearsay at this point.
So what are you going to be doing in Idaho?
Well, I believe the plan is I'm going to go over there to Nampa, Idaho for Wrestle Club. They have a benefit show that is helping out the Special Olympics, and I will be counting pinfalls and checking for submissions, as well as doing a little bit of scouting report on their referees to help their referees out a little bit because they're still fairly new there in Idaho. So a lot of officiating duties.
Awesome. When is this going to be?
August the 6th, I will be in Nampa, Idaho for Wrestle Club.
So since this is your first booking in a new state, how many states have you worked professionally in?
5 at this point, licensed in 3.
Okay, awesome. So what did you do this past weekend? Oh, another thing I was going to ask you. I saw that after his very successful first booking ever in Oregon, that the Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan is going to be returning soon?
Yes, he will be back in NWA Blue Collar Wrestling On the 17th of July, it will be a 6-man tag team match, and that will feature the new Dungeon of Doom, Buddy Highway, and Bad Blood wrestling with Kevin Sullivan. They will be taking on the team of Dave Havoc Hollenbeck, the Honky Tonk Man, and former professional boxer Chauncey Williver.
Oh my, HTM's going to be there as well.
Yes, he is on Team Honky Tonk. The name of that particular event, they're calling it Shake, Rattle, and Roll.
That sounds great. When is that?
17th of July. So it's a Sunday afternoon like usual there at the North Portland Eagles. Same start time of 6 p.m.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I might have to try to make it out for that. I missed Sullivan's last trip there.
That would be great to have you there. I'd make sure they found a spot for you. And I believe you know several of our roster members.
I know a few. That sounds awesome. So what did you do this past weekend?
This past week, I was at NWA Blue Collar speaking that promotion. Counted a few pinfalls, checked for a few submissions, and suffered a severe skull injury.
Oh, my.
I was refereeing a match. I was trying to get Gregor Petrov out of the ring because he had not been legally tagged yet. And in the rules, it states you cannot enter the ring without a legal tag. As I was trying to escort him out, something hit me right in the back of my head. I hit the turnbuckles, flew backwards. I was out of it for several minutes. Upon reviewing the footage, Darkness had tried to refracture my skull with his skull, which of course is his manager. It's an actual skull.
Okay.
That really happened. I had to get out my neck brace. Luckily, there's a neck brace available at the North Portland Eagles. I had to referee the main event while wearing a neck brace. I was pretty seriously hampered by that neck brace.
So you took a bump to the back of the head, and you still were able to referee the main event. That's why you're the best.
Well, you got to do what you got to do. Mere fractured skull doesn't usually stop me.
So will there be fines levied against Darkness for this display that he gave to you?
I've been petitioning the fine people there in the office at NWA Blue Collar Wrestling to contact Bruce Tharp at the NWA corporate headquarters and make sure he collects said fine money, because the man tried to fracture my skull. He found a weak spot, an old injury, tried to reopen it with his own manager's skull. Who does that to a man?
I don't know. That's someone that's dark, like Darkness.
Apparently. Now, have you ever refereed a match where someone tried to fracture your skull with a skull?
No, I've never refereed at all, so that's not an experience that I've had.
It's not in the textbooks that they give you.
Is it in the NWA guidelines, though?
It is not. I reviewed the guidelines.
All right.
I mean, I've suffered a fractured skull before in my day, but never from an actual skull.
That's craziness. That's irony right there.
It really was. Luckily, I don't think this is a severe injury. I should be back there within a couple of weeks, I think.
Excellent. Well, I was at the Indie PopCon this past weekend. My friend Rich Abbott, through his Wrestling Theology Fellowship, had brought in WWE Hall of Famer, the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, for a meet and greet. So it was awesome picking up Jimmy Hart at the airport. We went to Steak and Shake for lunch. Went to the PopCon, where we got to meet a lot of cool fans, and he took a lot of photos and signed a lot of things. And then we went to the Strong Style Wrestling promotion matches there that evening, and Jimmy Hart was the surprise manager for Abyss and Brutus Dillon, and they won their championship, their tag team championship there. Got to see Drew Skills and Poison Apollo Star take on the Headbangers. And it wasn't just those two against the Headbangers. The Headbangers had 3 out of the 4 Ninja Turtles walk them down to the ring. It was craziness. But Drew and Apollo were victorious in their match against the Headbangers. So all in all, it was a great evening, great weekend.
That sounds phenomenal, and I don't know if you were aware watching it, that Soul Shooters Headbangers match apparently was going to weigh heavily in QT Vokes' top 9 and 7/8 Pacific Northwest wrestler rankings. He discussed this on Friday.
Oh my. Well, Drew and Star were victorious, so I don't know how that affected the results, but I hope it's good for those two. Oh, and at the conclusion of the evening, Rich and I went to Waffle House with Jimmy Hart, and it was one of the most magical experiences of my life.
Did Jimmy get a peanut butter waffle?
No, he got grits. He didn't really have a main item. I remember there were grits and maybe a couple other small sides. When we went to Steak and Shake for lunch, he had baked beans and fries and coleslaw. So he's not much of an eater. He told me he doesn't drink alcohol, didn't want any coffee. So, but he did say that his favorite restaurant in the whole world is White Castle, but he didn't want any over the weekend because he thought that it would hurt his stomach.
Very interesting. I do remember the peculiar eating habits of Jimmy Hart on Legends House.
Yes. And they are true. It wasn't just gimmicked up for the show. That's really the way he is. So.
Yes. Now, at some point, when next our paths cross, remind me to tell you the story of how Jimmy Hart nearly got me killed in my very first match.
Okay. Do you want to talk about it now?
We better not get into it now. It might be a bit lengthy, but the next time our paths cross, you remind me, because I've had a lot of serious head trauma in my day. I might forget.
So this upcoming weekend, I will be volunteering at Days of the Dead in Indianapolis, Indiana. Should be a fun event, and I know Drew Skills will be there with the Heroes and Legends crew. And they've brought in Mean Gene Okerlund for that event. I know that Marty Jannetty will also be there that weekend, and on Saturday, the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels will be there. So it should be a fun and exciting weekend. No actual wrestling on there, but if you're a wrestling fan, and if you're a fan of horror movies or sci-fi, or I think one of the guys from Pantera is supposed to be there. So it should be pretty fun, crazy weekend.
Sounds like it. Now, do you have the old Shawn Michaels glove and sunglasses combination that you're going to wear to this event?
No, and I wanted to borrow the hat from Mrs. Beth Sharp, but we couldn't work out a time that I could receive it from her. So a little saddened by that.
I am as well.
What do you got coming up?
I'd also like to really quick point out, I don't know if it will reflect in QT's Pacific Northwest top 9 and 7/8 wrestler rankings, but Saturday night I went to Northwest Pro Wrestling over in Vaughan, Washington at the Key Peninsula Center. Jimmy Flame was robbed of his Washington State heavyweight title. Robbed, I say, robbed. J.D. Mason robbed Jimmy Flame. He may well have worn a cat burglar outfit instead of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles wrestling singlet.
That's horrible.
I thought so. I wanted my money back, but then I remembered it was a free show.
Oh, well. Then you get what you pay for, I guess.
Yeah,
what do you have coming up
it seemed that way.
What do you have coming up this weekend?
This week, Saturday, I will be at a benefit show. It's multi-promotional at La Poblanitas in Bremerton, Washington. SCW is hosting it, but they'll be represented by NWWA, CPW, and Lucha Volcanica, I believe. It's benefiting a couple of young ladies that were involved in a very, very serious hit-and-run incident a few weeks ago in Bremerton. All of the money going to the family, who will be there to collect the money personally. Then Sunday, I'm officiating a sports entertainment wedding. I've never done this before.
Ooh.
I had to get licensed up. Dash Venture and Lila Lodge apparently going to be wed. So after turnbuckle turmoil on Sunday, QT Vokes and myself will head over to the Lodge, and I will officiate the wedding / costume party / professional wrestling event.
So when you say officiate the wedding, are you the officiant? Are you performing the ceremony and signing the documentation?
That is my understanding. I had to get licensed up in order to perform this.
Well, I've done several weddings, so if you need any tips between now and then, please let me know.
I will. Beast Barnett has done this a time or two in exchange for Haribo gummy bears. I can't say that his was totally legal, but do you do the Haribo gummy bear gimmick for payment, or should I expect something else as a form of ruminification?
Well, since those are both friends of yours, then you charge them whatever you want. Usually, when I do it, it's I get payment for it, like cash money.
Very interesting. I might have to get the old indie payoff handshake then.
Yes. Or maybe it will be wedding cake payday. # wedding cake payday.
Possibly. But I can't guarantee that QT won't go through the wedding cake at some point, because he's gone on record he wants to manage someone, and usually when he does that, things don't go his way.
Well, tell Mr. Venture and Miss Lodge that the Undisputed Wrestling Show wish them the very best in their future endeavors.
I definitely will do that.
Just one piece of news that I want to get to. Today it was announced that Roman Reigns had failed a wellness policy testing, and that he has been suspended for 30 days, which I think it's very suspicious that they had him drop the title 2 days ago, had him be on Raw, where they announced that he would be in the main event for the next pay-per-view, and then the news came out today that he'd be suspended for 30 days. So the next pay-per-view is 32 days from now or something like that. So he will be able to be at that. I think the timing is quite suspicious that all that went down and all that conspired. When did you think that he got tested, and do you think that my conspiracy theory is correct?
It's entirely possible, Zane. I don't know when the test was performed versus when the office was given the results. I can't speak to that. But I also have a conspiracy theory that hit me as soon as I saw that. Now, it was revealed, I believe last week, that Goldberg was given permission to perform at the UFC upcoming this summer. That
Goldberg?
is, not Goldberg, Brock Lesnar. See, I told you I had severe brain trauma in the past. Brock Lesnar, the former UFC champion, returning there, he will not be tested for performance-enhancing drugs leading up to that fight. WWE, of course, associated with Brock Lesnar. I think maybe someone had to take a fall so they could still point out, no, we test our guys, even if you're a top name, they are subject to the rules of the wellness policy. It might have been a case where someone with a big enough name had to take a fall in order for them not to lose face with this whole Brock Lesnar skipping out on the drug testing for UFC.
Well, I think you got your facts just a little disorganized there. What the Lesnar thing was that they are usually supposed to go with 4 months of testing before they after they come back, and it was waived for him. But he has been tested. I think I've read recently that he's had 5 tests over the last 2 weeks. So he is being tested before he goes in the UFC.
Then my conspiracy theory is full of holes, Zane Paisley, full of holes. I blame darkness in that skull, because I'm not quite 100% recovered from that yet.
You might be correct. Sign Guy, I am ill prepared for this evening. I have not watched. I sort of watched part of Money in the Bank, but I was super tired and I was drifting in and out of sleep, and I did not see any of Raw last night. Are there any topics that you want to bring up tonight?
There is one thing. We actually discussed this a little bit over the last couple of weeks here on this very program. and that is the situation with Natty Neidhart. She's been portrayed very, very oddly over the last month or so leading into the pay-per-view. And in the pay-per-view, she turned against Becky Lynch. And between that and Monday Night Raw, the oddness continued. They've always portrayed her as really goofy on Total Divas, but on the main shows like your Raw, your SmackDown, she's never really portrayed as overly goofy or strange. They threw that out the window, I think, Zane. Have you noticed the odds going on with Miss Neidhart?
Nothing. It doesn't seem any more odd than her appearances on Total Divas, which you are an expert in that. So, do you find her behavior odd lately?
Well, taking away Total Divas, just looking at her on the main shows, wrestling-wise, your Raws, your SmackDowns, so forth, I think they portrayed her as really odd. I mean, she got this really odd new look for her. She looks like Ming the Merciless now, with the really strange eyebrows and the orange collar skin. She's got this new Chris Jericho-esque hair. And on the go-home show for the pay-per-view, the show they're supposed to be really hyping up the pay-per-view, they had her and Becky Lynch doing color commentary during Charlotte's match with Paige. Not out of the ordinary there. That's something they do to help sell a match. But instead of promoting the feud they have, instead of promoting the tag match at the pay-per-view, Natty used that time to talk about her cat's Instagram account.
That doesn't sound that odd to me for something for Natalya to say.
It doesn't if it's on Total Divas exclusively, but when you're on Monday Night Raw and it's your go-home for the pay-per-view and you're ignoring that to discuss your pussycat's Instagram pictures, it's a little bit odd, I think.
Well, but you got to think of the context of that, though, because they had their women's champion on the go-home show to the pay-per-view lose a non-title match to someone that she is not competing against at the pay-per-view. So, the whole thing seems odd. They talked about the Divas Revolution, and then they changed them to women's superstars, and the pay-per-view was a 3 or 4 minute tag match and that was the only opportunity that the women had on the card. So, it's the whole division is a farce right now. They're keeping Sasha Banks off television because she's too popular. There's a whole lot of craziness going on with it.
Well, I would like to shoot down one thing because Sasha Banks did return last night.
Oh, okay. How'd she do?
She did a run-in at the end of the Paige and Charlotte rematch and joined in to help save Paige as Charlotte and Dana Brooke had jumped, and Natty had all jumped Paige. So Sasha came running in to save the day, got a really, really good reaction.
Okay. Well, good. Hopefully they're setting her up for at least a title feud. And not keeping her off television any longer.
Now, I believe she was concussed for a while as well, so that might have been part of why you didn't see her on TV so much anymore, because they are being really, really, really cautious in the last several months with concussions because of the whole Daniel Bryan thing and all the media scrutiny having to deal with head injuries recently.
Yes, and she was concussed by a referee is what I remember hearing.
Yeah, my understanding is just a fluke accident that happened. The referee dropped down to make a count, I believe, and clipped Sasha just right with a knee. Those things can happen. Fluke injuries are just part of the business. I can testify to that 100%. Yeah, just a fluky thing, but anytime one of them gets a concussion, and Paige is another one that had a concussion and was kept off television for many, many months, they do not fool a boot with concussions anymore, especially after the way that Daniel Bryan and the company parted ways there when he had to retire. There's a lot of lack of communication between the two parties, and the company was getting a lot of backlash for keeping him out when he thought he was healthy and good to go, and it turned out he was more seriously hurt than he was letting the company realize. So I think they're going to be overly cautious, at least for the next several months, based on that, because they really don't want the media scrutiny to come down on them and send people out there when they have head injuries and are still susceptible to recurring problems with that.
Hey, Killer Kev, do you have anything that you want to talk about?
Well, we have a few minutes we need to fill. We can always talk about the New Japan Pro Wrestling Dominion show that happened on Father's Day.
Yeah, that was on the same day as the WWE Money in the Bank. I'd heard that it was a very long show, like 5-hour long show.
I'm trying to remember here. Pre-show, there was a match at like 2:30 to 2:45. Show officially kicked off at 3, and it was done after 7, right around 7 or so.
Okay, so like 4.5 hours then.
So not too terribly long.
And Dominion is kind of their, we would equate it to a SummerSlam, like their second biggest pay-per-view of the year, correct?
Correct.
Where was it, in like the Tokyo Dome, where was it a huge stadium, or?
They held it at Osaka-jo Hall.
Okay. So I'd heard. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Sign Guy, did you get a chance to watch this pay-per-view?
I did not. I had my NWA blue collar duties, and I did not get home till very, very late. So I went to Betty Bye straight away.
I don't blame you on that. Trying to catch those Japanese shows in the middle of the night, it's always a pain if you're trying to do it live. But hey, we have to give a shout out to Stevie J, who it was his birthday also, coincidentally, and his birthday gift was to actually stay up and watch his first New Japan show live.
Mm-hmm.
Good. We all had a good time together.
Very nice. Very nice. So, did you watch it with him then?
Yep. I mean, I wasn't there live with them, but we were on Facebook. We had a Facebook party.
Okay, all right. So I know Americans kind of dominated it. Elgin won the Intercontinental Championship in a ladder match. The Briscoes won the World Tag Team, IWGP World Tag Team Championship.
Mm-hmm. And
Young Bucks are now the 5-time Junior Tag Team Champions, right?
5-time. With almost a spin-a-rooney. Matt Jackson almost did a spin-a-rooney on the ramp.
Very nice. So, why are so many Americans winning so many titles over there right now?
I just think it's just a little bit of a pop because, a lot of the American talent, is really over. And all this talent pretty much comes from Ring of Honor. And they're getting ready to do another talent exchange for the summer. So they're going to be cross-promoting some shows over here in the U.S. And then they're going to go back over in Japan and do some cross-promotion as well. But Michael Elgin is just huge over as your stereotypical American talent. He's all puffed up and barrel-chested now. And now he's kind of grown the stereotypical big bushy beard, and his head's all shaved now, and he's very much kind of a throwback character for a lot of Japanese wrestling from years past. So he's really over, and kind of in the same way with them boys. They got the big bushy beards, they've got their heads shaved. They're just kind of wild looking, and Japanese fans just love that.
Well, very nice. So what was the match of the evening? Or I guess morning for you.
Oh, I mean, it's so tough to pick, honestly. Just about every match on the card was really good. If I really had to think about it and pick one, I think it was probably the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship with Kushida picking up the win over over Will Ospreay, who just won the Best of the Juniors tournament. Ospreay was on fire. Just all through this match. He just looked so good. And if he ever leaves Japan and ever comes to the United States and starts working, man, people are just gonna love him when he gets here.
Now, he's not part of the WWE Cruiserweight Classic, right?
I don't think he is. I'll be honest, I haven't paid any attention to who's in that, but I don't think I've heard his name mentioned.
Well, I'm gonna go through. I've got the list pulled up right here. You keep talking. Oh, it's Zack Sabre Jr. that I'm thinking of.
Okay, not sure that. Hey, who's hot riding in the background?
That would be someone on the street below me.
Oh, sound like they were having fun. Yeah, I mean, the main event for the show was for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, Naito versus Okada. I didn't think that there was going to be a title change here. There ended up being 3 title changes on the card. That's pretty heavy for IWGP. But I wasn't expecting that Okada would pick up a win over Naito. I figured they'd stretch that out for, at least another month or 2 before they pulled that switch, but that was pretty good. Briscoes pick up the win for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championship over the Gorillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. That was a really good match too. I expected it to be pretty rough and tumble. If you're a fan of the Briscoes, you're gonna love this match as well. One match I wasn't quite as excited about was the Never Open Weight Championship. Yuji Nagata hold that title. Yuji Nagata, 48 years old and still kicking ass. He's definitely got to be one of the oldest active wrestlers on any wrestling promotion's roster these days, and he's still sharp as a tack here against Shibata. And it was a really close match. Shibata comes out for a win. This match may actually be the favorite match of everybody else on Thursday night AMP. We're definitely going to run down the whole card this Thursday. IWGP Intercontinental Championship match, ladder match. Kenny Omega, leader of the Bullet Club now, versus Michael Elgin. Kind of quite surprised that Kenny Omega would even agree to a ladder match. But I can't ever recall a ladder match being on an IWGP pay-per-view, but they did it right here. It was a really, really good, solid ladder match here between these two guys. Tough going. If you like good slobber knocker matches, you'll like this one as well.
And Elgin wasn't even originally scheduled for the match, correct?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Wasn't it Tanahashi that was supposed to be in it, but he decided that he wanted to heal up before the G1 climax?
Oh yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten about that.
So what's going on with the Bullet Club? I guess they got the junior tag team championship, but they lost the Intercontinental Championship. They lost the World Tag Team Championship. Is it going to still be a thing going on forward, or are they going to kind of dissolve them?
Oh, I think it's definitely still going to be a thing going forward. I mean, they don't have to hold the titles all the time, but hell, the Bucks hold 2 straps now. So, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship in an elimination match. And I swear this title only gets defended in like 4-way matches anymore. But it was still a fun match to watch. It was the Young Bucks, against, Red Dragon, Kyle O'Reilly, and
Bobby Fish.
Bobby Fish, yes. I remembered his last name. For some reason, his first name's slipping. Of course, you know them from Ring of Honor for years. Matt Sydal and Ricochet, which to me, pound for pound, is one of the best tag teams in the world today. And Roppongi Vice, which is Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta, which is, huge Trent Beretta fan. And definitely in this match, I think everybody was pretty supportive of Sydal and Ricochet, because just about everybody came out wearing a T-shirt that proclaimed "I am an artist." So I think Vader pretty much understood that he was being told to fuck off. But it was also, once again, another great match. Young Bucks end up with the win. I am not the fan of the Young Bucks at all, but you can't deny their wrestling talent and the fact that they know how to go out there and entertain. So there you go.
Now, one thing I'd like to point out, you were talking a little bit earlier about why the Americans might be getting so many title opportunities. This coming Friday is the Ring of Honor pay-per-view as well, and like you said, Killer Kev, a lot of the talent that is over there in Japan on the American side comes out of Ring of Honor, so it might be a deal where pay-per-view happens and you see a lot of the Ring of Honor guys with Japanese titles to set up the talent exchange over the summer.
Yeah, that's true. And if I don't know what I was going to think. I was going to say something, and then it was gone. I think your concussion has rubbed off on me, sign guy.
It very well could. Have you had anyone swing an actual skull at your skull recently?
Not that I recall, but I may have to check the tape.
If it happens, send the tape to Bruce Tharp.
Indeed.
So this is the Undisputed Wrestling Show on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. You can check us out each Tuesday night or download it on Wednesday. The way I download it onto my phone is I've got an Apple phone, so I go to the iTunes store, get the podcast app. Once I got that, I hit the keyword Angry Marks, all one word, Angry Marks. I hit subscribe, and then I get new, awesome, the best of professional wrestling and mixed martial arts podcasts delivered to my phone every single day. And if you have an Android, you can get the Podomatic app. And once again, use the keyword Angry Marks, all one word, Angry Marks, to subscribe. And we've got a bunch of great podcasts. And if you want to go back and listen to any of our old shows, you can go to the angrymarks.com/podcast. Or the easiest way for the Undisputed Wrestling Show is to go to www.theundisputedwrestlingshow.weebly.com. You can see our upcoming guests, and you can also click into our archives, where in alphabetical order you can see all of our previous guests and click their links to listen to the show. So, pretty exciting stuff. What do we got coming up on Angry Marks Podcast Network this week, Kev?
Well, tomorrow night will be Glove Up or Shut Up with Stevie J and Peter H, covering everything in the world of mixed martial arts. Of course, always lots of UFC action, lots of Bellator action to cover every week, and lots of stuff in between. So it's once again going to be a jam-packed show. You don't want to miss it if you're a fan of mixed martial arts. Thursday night is Thursday Night AMP, where Stevie J comes back along with Abby Arthur and along with the Great Sudoku to talk everything in the world of professional wrestling. They're definitely going to go into more detailed coverage of the New Japan show, maybe talk a few minutes about the Ring of Honor show coming up this weekend as well. Friday night is Over the Top Radio with Ed in San Antonio and his friends, talking about pretty much whatever Ed wants. It may be pro wrestling related, it may be MMA related, it may be related to nothing at all. But it's always an entertaining show. If you've never checked out the Ed's show, definitely check that out. And then this Saturday evening, we are going to be recording a special podcast to preview the Ring of Honor pay-per-view show. And we are going to have our own reporter, Mike Poulin, on the scene. And returning with him is Rowan Unrau. And they will run down that card for you as well.
Well, and also you mentioned Glove Up or Shut Up. They do have something huge to talk about. The UFC being bought for $4.2 billion.
Oh, really? I had missed that news.
Yeah, it's being sold to a consortium, including the Patriots owner, for $4.2 billion.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Crazy. The Zuffa brothers bought it, 15 years ago for $2 million? Or 20 million, whatever it was, and they've changed. I don't know. It's craziness.
I know that. I mean, they've made some money hand over fist. I'm surprised that they would sell it though.
Oh, they've been they've been shopping around. That's why they're having such huge cards this coming summer, right in a row, because they wanted to boost the worth of the company, short-sighted hot shot booking, and to make it more valuable than what it really is. And so, yeah, they've sold it, and Dana White is going to stay on as president. I don't know if he gets any points in the deal or anything, but it should be an interesting show. I can't wait to listen to Glove Up or Shut Up.
Yep, they will definitely go into the nuts and bolts of that for sure.
Awesome. Right now we've got the head trainer and owner of Monster Factory, Danny Cage. Danny, how are you this evening?
Absolutely fantastic.
Well, we've had you on before talking about the Monster Factory, but for those that haven't listened to that archive show, first off, they need to go back and listen to it. But can you give us a quick synopsis of the Monster Factory training facility?
Basically, we're a training facility in Paulsboro, New Jersey. We have anywhere between 25 and 35 full-time students. We train Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And basically, we're about building careers. We're not a part-time wrestling school where you can show up where you want, when you want, everything like that. We basically have a very strict policy. We lose students daily. I've just kicked out some students. We're about building careers. It's not like a hobby for us. So that's the biggest thing that I'd say is the difference between us and other wrestling schools. We have close ties to the WWE, TNA, ROH, stuff like that. So it's not like we're any other wrestling school, just run-of-the-mill wrestling school. We're, like I said, we're about building careers. We're about making connections and making sure the students can find a career as they move on. Plus, we also have our own federation that we run 2 times a month, sometimes up to 3 times a month. We have our own network, the MF Network. We have our own reality show, and there's just, one of our kids right now is at the Cruiserweight Classic for WWE. Another one of our guys is actually at NXT. About 3 or 4 of our guys in the last couple of years have had tryouts and also done work with Ring of Honor. So we're not just any wrestling school.
I was actually going to ask you about Anthony Bennett next. He is going to be participating in the Cruiserweight Classic from WWE. What's going on with that? Obviously he's super excited, but can you tell us a little bit more about his mindset going into it?
He was a little bit laid back, very nervous, but a little bit laid back. And I think, this is like, everybody thinks like it just happened overnight. This is like 3 years in the making. This all started with Joe Briscoe coming to us in 2012 when I brought Joe Briscoe in and taking a liking to Anthony Bennett and letting him know, listen, you're 125 pounds, you need to get bigger. And then he came back in the next year and he was up to about $140. And he came back and it was $150, and then he came back and he was about $165. And he made a promise to him that if they ever did anything with cruiserweights, that he'd submit them. And Jerry called me up and asked me if he was good to go, and I said, just hold off for a little bit. Let me just make sure he's okay. And everything's always to do with attitude and if they deserve it. I just don't want to put someone in because their talent's good, because there's tons of talent out there. There's tons of great wrestlers, but I got to make sure that the person's going to represent us well. And he screwed up a little bit, but then he straightened himself out. So I said, submit his name. And, he got the call, and that's why he's there. It's like one of those things. It wasn't like he randomly got the call out of nowhere. This was 3 years of hard work in the making, him doing everything he was supposed to do. Like I said, along the way, he's had some hiccups and some screw-ups, but he redeemed himself, and he did everything he was supposed to do. Plus, he's only like 21 years old. Kids make mistakes, and hopefully he benefits from this experience, and he learns, because he's already texted me and called me and let me know, like, everything they're saying there is exactly what we do here. So I feel good about that.
Well, and you had also mentioned someone down at NXT. I think you were talking about Matthew Riddle, correct?
No, I was talking about Steve Cutler. Matthew Riddle is not at NXT right now.
He's tearing it up at Evolve right now.
Yeah, he was tearing up at Evolve, but he was tearing it up with us way before that. You know, that's the thing. Like, people are like, oh, he's doing awesome at Evolve. I'm like, the guy was, having 20-minute, 30-minute matches with us before he was having 5-minute matches with Evolve, and everybody was saying, oh my God, he's unbelievable. Look what he's doing at Evolve. But he was going through 25 and 30-minute matches with us. That's what people fail to understand, but we didn't have the influence of the WWE behind us to show everybody what we were doing. That's the, benefit of Evolve, I guess. But, now Matt Riddle, he came to us over a year ago when we started training him. He had, if you look back on our library, like him versus, Luis Martinez, him versus, QT Marshall and Nick Camarado, like, I'll put those matches up against any of the matches he's did with Evolve. But, I mean, I'm glad that he's getting more notoriety, getting more bookings. But I want him to have a career. I don't want him to just be doing the indies. Unless the indies is going to be his career and he's going to make a good living about it. But, to make a good living, it's got to be, a couple grand a week. And I don't know if everybody's going to do that in the indies.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to kick it over to Sign Guy. Sign Guy, what do you have for Danny Cage?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Cage, for joining us. Now,
no problem.
My first question is, in today's landscape of wrestling and sports entertainment, it's a lot different than it was even 15, 20 years ago. There's a lot of focus with the major companies on things outside of wrestling, like social media, locker room etiquette, things like that get scrutinized. Do you teach your students how to handle all of that type of aspect of the business?
Absolutely. I tell everybody, like, the in-ring stuff is like maybe 5 to 10%, and everything outside of the ring is about 90%, whether it be promos, how you carry yourself, your social media, locker room etiquette, everything, your branding of yourself, everything. Because there's never been a shortage of good wrestlers in professional wrestling, but there has been a good shortage of, people who know how to handle themselves. And like you said, this isn't the 80s, this isn't the 90s, this isn't the 70s anymore. The business has completely changed, and for those that don't want to change, good. You can keep doing what you're doing. And we'll keep doing what we're doing, and we'll keep on getting the more students and keep getting the more people signed and keep getting the more coverage. And, then you guys can just sit there and pitch your pennies against the curb. I don't care.
If someone came to you today and they were looking to get into the professional wrestling business, they have no connection at all to the business. If you were to take the Monster Factory out of the equation, what are a few of the places you would recommend they go to try to start their path in professional wrestling?
You mean if I let's pretend the Monster Factory didn't exist and I wanted them to go train somewhere?
Exactly. If someone wanted your advice on where to go and the Monster Factory was not there.
There's a very small select few, and if I forget any, I'm going to feel horrible, but I would say I would send them to Rudy Boy Gonzalez, Texas Wrestling Academy. I would send them to Steve Carino in North Carolina. I would send them to Ring of Honor Dojo. I would send them to Maryland Championship Wrestling. Trying to think who else. Maybe Damian Adams, and I think that's probably my. And if I'm forgetting someone, I'm going to feel like, do you guys curse here? Can I curse?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, because I'm going to feel like shit if I don't remember somebody, but that's like off the top of my head because I wasn't expecting that question because we're going to be here forever. So, like, I wouldn't expect that question. And plus, like, in my mind, like, if you live across the globe, you should find your way here first. But if we didn't exist, those are the guys I would say to go to. Definitely.
On the average, do you think that you get more success out of guys that are stepping into the Monster Factory and it's their first ever time getting into a wrestling ring, or do you see a little more success out of the guys that have had training elsewhere and then find their way to the Monster Factory?
I'd say it's about 50-50 because a lot of our guys now are coming into us that trained elsewhere, but they didn't get the proper training. So now we're just basically fine-tuning them and trying to fix the mistakes. But at the same time, I've had a couple good students that came, straight off the road, straight off the streets and had no experience whatsoever and did fairly well for themselves. So I'd say it's probably about 50-50.
Of course, when you started your career, things were very different, like we were saying, as opposed to what they are now.
Right.
If you wouldn't have gotten the training that you did, if you were starting out your career the same time frame, looking back on it, who do you think would have taken Danny Cage and made him the most successful training-wise in the same time frame you were getting trained?
Oh, you mean if I went to another school other than the Monster Factory?
Exactly.
Back then, there wasn't many. There really wasn't. Back in the 90s, there wasn't that many wrestling schools around, so I wouldn't even be able to begin. I mean, there was like Stu Hart had his, Kowalski, and a couple others, and that was it. So I wouldn't even imagine who could have broke me in. So that's like, it's one of those questions where I really can't answer it because there wasn't really. I would say maybe Kowalski's. That's the only thing, But even then, when I broke into the Monster Factory back then, I mean, it wasn't even that it was that great of a school or anything. It was just that it was the really only school around. Like, what we're doing now is nothing like the Monster Factory did back then. Because, like, when I broke in, we had a ring and a building. And you worked out for 2 hours and you went home. Like, we never worked promos. We never worked etiquette. We never worked any of that stuff. Until I came in and took over, like, that was unheard of. Like, I molded the school into what I always thought a wrestling school should be. So that's what we created. Because, like, everyone's like, oh, man, no wonder this place is so great. Look at everything. I'm like, no, this wasn't around before 2011. This came in when I got here. Like, before that, it was basically a 30 by 30 brick building, no heating, no air conditioning, a ring. You came in from 6 to 8 and you went home. And then in the summertime, you had off. And they didn't care if you showed up or you didn't. So, we put in a strict regimen and a whole cast of characters to help train. And, if you didn't show up, you got kicked out. We brought in people. We brought in Les Thatcher, Joe Briscoe, Rip Rogers, Kevin Kelly, Delirious, Bob Evans, Bubba Ray Dudley, Jay Lethal, I mean, MVP, you name it. Like, everybody's been in to work with our kids. I wanted as many people in as possible to get as much feedback as possible for our kids to actually have careers, not just so I can take their money and let them sit in a warehouse and either freeze or be, dehydrated. So, it's day and night between when I started in 98 till now. It's just day and night. You can't even compare it. The two wrestling schools aren't even the same. So that's all I'll say about that. It's, I'm not bitter. I'm just saying we've adapted, and I'm glad that we have. It's just sad that a lot of other wrestling schools haven't. It's still the same as it was in 98.
Hey, Danny, can you tell us about your event coming up this weekend on Saturday the 25th?
Absolutely, man. This Saturday we got a great event. We got Anthony Bettle will be fresh off his Cruiserweight Championship or Cruiserweight Classic debut. He'll be facing LSG, Leon St. Giovanni, who's our Supersonic champion, which is our version of a Cruiserweight title. Leon also not only is a student of ours, but he also wrestles over at the ROH Dojo and wrestles for ROH, so that should be a great matchup. They've been going back and forth for years now. We have paid in full tag team title defense against the Peace Cartel. The Heavenly Bodies will be in. Mikey Webb versus Vinny Marced. I always mess up his name. It'll be against Vinny. And Cody Vance will be facing a member of the Beast Cartel, plus Punisher Martinez will be there. And he has an injured arm, so we'll see how that goes and what will happen with that. Plus, we're doing backstage tours for everybody after the show, a Q&A, and free food from 6 to 7 p.m. So, it's one of those things where, like, we do, like, great family events, and everybody should take advantage of it. It's only $10 to get in, $15 for front row seats. And it's family fun from, 6 to 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. You can't beat that.
Well, let's say that we're nowhere near Paulsboro, New Jersey. How can we get in on the action?
Basically, within usually a week, you could watch it on our network, the MFNetwork.com. And then usually a week after that, you can watch it on our YouTube channel. We usually put it up on our YouTube channel, Monster Factory Pro TV. And our network is $4.99 a month, but what comes with that is not only just the matches. We also have in there behind-the-scenes footage, exclusive stuff. Like, if you were somebody breaking in the business or are in the business, like the MF Network is what you should be on, because you get to see how to produce shows, how to, what goes into the training. I mean, if I was a kid back then, back in the 90s, like, this would be what I would be watching. So once I joined a wrestling school, I would be so much more prepared. Or let's say if you're at a wrestling school, you now know, okay, this is what a real wrestling school does. So now if you don't have that wrestling school going on where you're at, you can walk away from it and find a new one, because what we do is, I think top to bottom's the best in the business right now. Barring, the Performance Center with $1 billion budget, we're doing just as good with $100 air budget in my book.
Well, and, it's not just new guys coming out. Like, I know a guy that's been going to some of your training sessions recently, Fuji Brown, who's been around for a long time, but he says that he's come back renewed and that he's learned so much more in just that short time at the Monster Factory than he ever did before. Yeah,
he's a good kid. I've given him a hard time, and I'm going to keep giving him a hard time because, put it this way, the way I look at it, you've been in the business 15 years and you don't know that much. So that's on you and on who you surround yourself with. So if I don't give you a hard time, then I'm just going to keep on feeding into what made you be what you are now. So, I love the kid, and he's a good guy, but I'm going to keep giving him a hard time until I see that he's progressed past where I don't have to give him that hard of a time. He probably hates me and thinks I hate him, but I don't. I'm just pushing him because I don't want to be part of the problem.
I don't think that he hates you the way he talks about you on social media, the way he puts over the Monster Factory. I know that he appreciates everything that you're doing with him.
Awesome.
Yeah. Before we let you go, how can our listeners follow Monster Factory and you personally, Danny? Because I know you're one of the hardest working people, not just in pro wrestling, but in the world. But how can they keep track of what you do on social media?
Sure, they can follow me on Snapchat, Real Danny Cage. They could follow me on Instagram, Real Danny Cage. They could follow me on Twitter, The Danny Cage. They could follow my Facebook page, The Danny Cage. They could just text me, 609-471-7904. I don't hide my phone number from anybody. 609-471-7904. I also handle our Monster Factory social media, which is at the number 4 Monster Factory. That's on Instagram and Twitter. I also handle our our Facebook page, Monster Factory, the MFPW, which is on Facebook, and on Twitter, the MFPW. I mean, there's just so many things that I handle. Sometimes I just lose track of the stuff. And of course, the MFNetwork.com. Subscribe to that. So sign up right now. You get like a month free. And trust me, man, guys, just try it out for a month and you'll get hooked. It's really some of the coolest stuff around, and it's especially if like you're one of those quote unquote marquee guys and you want to know like all the insight. Like I'm about exposing the business, so I love doing it. and those that want to hide it, I just laugh at them and give them the middle finger because, like, I'm exposing it daily. So go to the mfnetwork.com, and that's about it, man.
Excellent. Is there anything that you'd like to say to our listeners before you need to be let go?
Yeah, we have this huge camp coming up, August 19th through the 21st. I'm going to be there. Les Thatcher, Rudy Boy Gonzalez, Kevin Kelly. I'm sorry, not Kevin Kelly. Bob Evans, Matt Wierslinski, the strength and conditioning coach former strength and conditioning coach from NXT. Me, QT, the Blue Meanie, Bill Wiles. I mean, it's going to be wild. It's August 19th through the 21st, and it's only $150. All experience levels are welcome. If you have none, you can come and participate without, getting in the ring and doing stuff. And if you have some experience, you can get in the ring, you can do what you want. It's not going to be, we're going to make you puke camp. It's a learning experience, place to network and, really find out what goes into making a pro wrestling career. So head to monsterfactory.org and, check that out.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much, Danny. We appreciate you coming on, and anytime that you want to get on to talk about your events, we'd love to have you back.
All right, thank you very much, guys. You have a good night.
All right, thank you. You too.
You got it, bud.
All right, Sign Guy, another great show. The two smaller guys from the show really held down the fort tonight.
I think Drew Skill's going to kick himself again for missing this one. And Will Huckabee, wherever he may be, going to join in the self-kicking. Because that was a great show.
Yes. Tell us again what you got coming up and who you got coming up on the Sign Guy Wrestling Show.
Well, tomorrow, Total Dudes, Big Vicious, whom did nothing to save me from the attempted skull fracturing on Sunday night, will be our guest on Total Dudes. Then on Friday on Sign Guys Wrestling Show, we have Troy Miller, whom I believe you know quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Then Saturday, I will be at the multi-promotional benefit in Bremerton, Washington, to help raise funds for the hit-and-run victims and their families. Families will be on hand to collect all of the funds, so it's 100% legitimate benefit show. Sunday, we have Podcasters Day on Turnbuckle, which should prove to be interesting. And then QT and myself are going to beeline to Shelton, Washington, where I will officiate the marriage of Dash Venture and Lila Lodge at their wedding / costume party / professional wrestling event.
That sounds amazing. Killer Kev, is there anything that you need to hype before we go?
I think I've already hyped it all.
All right. Well, I will be at Days of the Dead in Indianapolis, Indiana, Friday and Saturday. So look for me if you know who I am. I'm the guy with the beard. And come over and say hi to me. All right. Well, for Sign Guy, for Drew Skills, for Killer Kev, for the Incredible Huck, for our executive producer, the Prophet,